We've got apologies from two people, Councillor Burnett, and Councillor Reid. They have been substituted by Joe. Yeah, Joe Lash. Yeah, Joe. Yes. Item 2 then, declarations of interest. We've got declarations of interest and the item on the agenda. Item 3 then is the minutes of the previous meeting. We're going to be really happy with minutes of the previous meeting. Yeah. Item 4 then is moving to obviously brought a few friends with them tonight. So we've got Debbie Harris, Chief goes to Dave Fletcher, who's in charge of the active forward.
Thank you, Chair. So this report presents the internal audit outturn report for 24-25. So it's a very important document that's been brought here today. So just to give you some further background in relation to this report. So the Accounts and Audit Regulations 2015 specify that local authorities should have an effective internal audit taking into account standards, the relevant standards, and also proper practices. In terms of the standards that apply to a local government internal audit up until the 31st of March 2025, those were the UK public sector internal audit standards, which I will shorten to PSIAS for the rest of the presentation of this report because it's a bit of a mouthful. So the PSIAS requires that the head of internal audit should form and deliver an annual internal audit opinion by the way of a report. This annual report should have the opinion, the summary of work that supports the opinion, and also a statement on conformance with the UK public sector internal audit standards. Just to bring to members' attention, from the 1st of April 2025, the UK PSIAS has been replaced with the global internal audit standards in the UK public sector, although the requirement to deliver an annual outturn opinion still exists in both the old and new standards. So just to cast your mind back, the internal audit plan for 24-25 was approved by this committee on the 22nd of April, and that sets out our work for the year. As you will appreciate, the internal audit plan is fluid, and from time to time, pieces of audit work will get cancelled, and there will be some additional pieces of work as well. However, we are required to undertake enough work to form my annual internal audit opinion. We'll talk in a moment or two on page 10 about the one cancelled job, which was the asset management capital piece of work that was cancelled in year. There were no substitutes. With that in mind, though, we have delivered 95% of the audit plan, so that is enough work for me to form my annual audit opinion. So for every audit, we give an assurance opinion. We have 2 positive assurance opinions, which are substantial and adequate, and we have 1 negative opinion, which is limited. Obviously, we don't want too many limited assurance opinions. And then in terms of formulating our annual outturn opinion, we split the audit plan into various categories, which are detailed at paragraph 2.1. So we've got core financial systems, assurance reviews, and counter fraud work. And depending on the number of opinions that are adequate and substantial and limited, that will denote whether that category passes or fails. And the number of categories that pass and fail will denote the overall opinion for the year. And I'll talk about that in a few moments. Included in this report also are the high-level recommendations that have been made in 24-25. And again, I'll talk about that when we get to Appendix 1. So moving on to the audit plan outcomes for 24-25, taking the first category of core financial systems, you will see that there were 4 pieces of work delivered under this category. 2 being given a substantial audit opinion and 2 being given an adequate audit opinion. There was 1 high-level recommendation made as part of the council tax review, and that's detailed at paragraph 2.4 in the table. It's worth just bearing in mind, you'll see that from time to time, and also within this table, some of the pieces of work are at draft. That's because we do like to time our audits to assist services. So from time to time, we do have draft audit reports, and we are proactively looking to finalise those as soon as possible. So that's it in train at the moment. Moving on to the second category, which is other assurance reviews. The details of those audits within that category are detailed in the table at paragraph 2.5 on page 9 and overleaf on page 10 of your pack. So this is where we have the core of our work that's undertaken here. So there are 18 pieces of work that were delivered, 6 were given substantial assurance, 10 were given adequate. There was 1 limited assurance opinion relating to the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, and there was also an advisory piece of work. Within this category as well, there were some high-level recommendations that were made, and these are detailed at paragraph 2.6 all the way down to 2.9. There are a couple of high-level recommendations where we haven't gone into too much detail regarding the weaknesses, purely because they're of a sensitive nature, and we wouldn't want those weaknesses to be exploited by a third party. So we've left those at the main body of the report. 2.10 refers to the 1 cancelled piece of work, which relates to asset management capital. That was included within the 23-24 audit plan. It was subsequently completed by the Stoke-on-Trent internal audit team. Moving on to the counter-fraud work that was undertaken. So as part of our internal audit plan, we have a counter-fraud plan as well. And the work that's carried out there, Dave Fletcher, the counter-fraud manager, will go into that detail when we get to Appendix 2. A large part of our work relates to our continuous controls monitoring. We also have some time set aside for the National Fraud Initiative, and also we have some time for any reactive investigations. And like I said, Dave will talk to you in a few moments' time about that work. In terms of financial losses in relation to special investigations and our proactive counter-fraud work, they're identified at 2.14, and you'll see that the losses relate to NFI losses at the moment, which account for £1,070. You will see that there was a whistleblowing allegation, and also we did facilitate some work in relation to a caravan park, and again, Dave can go into a bit more detail in a few moments' time. So in terms of how we formulate our opinion then, we benchmark each category against audits, at least 80% of those audits achieving a positive assurance opinion, so that is adequate or substantial. Each category is weighted the same, and based upon the number of adequate, substantial and limited assurance reviews, that will denote whether the category passes or fails. And you will see that at 2.19, all 3 of the categories, so core financial systems, assurance reviews and the counter fraud work category, they all pass. So 3 out of 3 categories pass, which then leads into the overall annual audit opinion for the year, which is substantial assurance, which is being given to the organisation's governance, risk management and control framework. Moving on to internal audit's own performance measures, we just have 2. There are 2 key ones, which is the delivery of the audit plan. So like I said, we need to perform enough audit work to form our opinion, and also we look upon the client satisfaction surveys. So our target is a score of 4, which denotes a good or higher for every piece of work that's conducted. And you'll see at the table at paragraph 2.21 on page 12 of your pack that we have achieved both of those targets for those KPIs. Moving on to the UK public sector internal audit standards in a little bit more detail. So they were first introduced in 2013 and revised in 2017. The PSIAS is accompanied by the SIP for Local Government Application Note, which is dated 2019. However, that has been replaced from April 2025 by the Global Internal Audit Standards. They are largely the same, but there are a few tweaks and a few changes to terminology. We're currently going through our own gap analysis, but we are largely compliant with the Global Internal Audit Standards because they're not too dissimilar from the UK Public Sector Internal Audit Standards. We are required to measure ourselves against the relevant standards. So for the last time, we are measuring ourselves against the public internal audit standards, and we promote within our own service conformance with the standards by having our own quality assurance and improvement programme. And there's three sort of key elements to our programme. We have our ongoing monitoring of our internal audit activity. That's conducted by the audit managers and myself. We have one-to-one meetings, management meetings, and also the supervision of every piece of work, which has an electronic workflow for the approval of the brief, work programmes, and the draft and final audit reports. Also, I undertake a periodic self-assessment. So each year I look at our conformance to the public sector internal audit standards, and I report to this committee. The final element is the external quality assessment, and we are obliged to have an external assessment once every 5 years. This requirement has also been carried forward into the Global Internal Audit Standards as well. Our last external quality assessment was undertaken in 2023, where we were found to be conforming to the public sector internal audit standards, and we were rated the highest rating that there could be. That assessment was undertaken by SIP for themselves. So turning to page 14 of your pack and the results of the self-assessment, that's at paragraph 2.26. I am declaring that we're 97% compliant with the public sector internal audit standards. Where we have standards that are not applicable or partially in place, they are detailed at appendix 3 of your pack, which is on page 25 and 26, if you would like that detail. With all that in mind, we can report that there are no impairments or restrictions in the scope of our work or impairments in our independence, which prohibits me from delivering my annual audit opinion here today. So moving on to now Appendix 1, which is on page 17 of your pack. This details the high priority recommendations that have been made during 24-25, and you'll see that one of the high level recommendations relating to council tax has been implemented already, with the remaining 4 still in progress. Chair, with permission, I'm now going to hand over to the County Fraud Manager, who will talk you through Appendix 2.
Thank you. I will take you through each section of the report, just with a few highlights of what we've completed in our first year here. We have set up an intranet page which details the council's fraud policy and advises people how to report a fraud. Over the coming year, we hope to expand on that and use that as a platform to host alerts and interest articles about fraud. The purpose of that being to get people looking at those pages and aware there is a fraud service here and there is someone they can call if they can have a concern. On the proactive side, we do our CCM. There is room to expand this, but so far we have been looking for duplicate payments using invoice data. Since this report was written, of the 6 potential duplicates outlined in paragraph 1.5.8, 2 have been confirmed as overpayments. We have 2 data entry errors which are being corrected, and there's 2 still being looked into. At the moment we look at duplicate payments, and we've also looked at purchase card payments, compared them to invoice payments, just looking out for the scenario where someone buys something on a P card and then later on gets a paper invoice and inadvertently pays that as well. We had no adverse findings on that one. We will look to expand the CCM this year. We're hoping to get improved purchase card payment data, which will allow us to look at a few different areas and make our testing more sophisticated going forwards. And there is the potential we can look at P card usage in periods of absence from work to make sure people aren't using their card when they're away, or someone else is using their card when they're away from work. The NFI, the National Fraud Initiative, is a big data matching exercise which all public sector organisations take part in. The council has uploaded data there, including payments data, housing benefit data and council tax data. That is matched against other organisations such as DWP, deceased persons, other councils, and they produce a list of potential matches there for Newcastle to look through. That work has just started, and we will be looking over the current year to see what's happening, help the council triage those matches, looking at making sure the high risk ones are looked at, and we'll be reporting back on that later in the year. On the reactive investigation side of things, we have assisted with a concern around council tax payments from a caravan park and how caravans were classified. We're provided with information from a park owner in that case and passed it back to the council tax team to process. And we've had one whistleblowing allegation which resulted in no further action and no evidence of fraud being carried out. Happy to take any questions on the fraud outturn if needed.
Thank you. Anybody got any questions? Yeah. Yeah. Whichever section you've got questions on, Mike.
Thank you very much. Can I first say it's bloody brilliant, actually. So for all the officers involved, congratulations. Really good scores, and it's nice. The fact that there are things that we need to do better. I always feel worse if it's a perfect score, because that just means we're probably missing something. So it's a really good piece of work. In the audit plan outcomes through the core financial services, you mentioned obviously the two areas, UK Shared Prosperity Fund and the civil contingencies and business continuity. And you mentioned that for commercial reasons, you wouldn't put that in the full report. That will be made available to this committee, though, won't it? There's nothing in there that councillors can't read. That's it. Thank you.
Joan?
Come across a couple of things fairly recently where people are highlighting things and they're detecting things. It was to do with a particular police report that we were given on a different committee. And if I'm looking at your 1.5 load of information, can't remember what page it's on, I'm sorry. The purpose of continuous controls monitoring is to detect the fraud, detect the error, deter fraud and error, provide reassurance. But I'm going to ask you the same thing I asked the policemen, who were very convinced that they were doing a fantastic job, and I'm sure they are. What happens? It's all very well finding a red flag and something, gotcha.
Yeah.
What happens? And that's what the man in the street would want to know. That's what I would want to know. I know you put provisions in for protection for the future, but what happens to that thing, that evil thing that you found?
So these duplicate invoices, they typically are data entry errors. Someone's accidentally put an invoice in twice. The system has some controls in place, but if someone types an invoice number in differently, maybe puts a hyphen in there or starts off with zeros, like on the bit of paper, but then someone else does it without the leading zeros, that might not always get picked up. So I would typically treat these as error, and first thing that happens is the council asks for the money back. Now, these have only recently been reviewed, so I don't think that's happened yet. If the company starts ignoring, and that's a debtor's problem, and there is potentially criminal offence retaining a wrongful credit if it goes that far, but that's probably very unlikely in this case. So they are followed up, we ask for the money back. CCM in general, say further down the line, we looked at expense claims. If I found someone had made 20 expense claims, we found a duplicate in there, I would say it's unlikely to be fraud if someone's stolen £10. They're risking their job, they're risking their livelihood. It's more likely to be error. But if we found someone had done that every month for 6 months and it was, all of their claims being duplicated or dates were being falsified to try and not be detected, that would look like fraud, and then that would turn into an investigation.
Once the investigation's done, is it then handed to the police?
Yeah. So we'd call it fact finding. Can we substantiate it? And then if it's likely to be in the public interest, we'd probably, with Sarah's agreement, refer that to the police and say, here's our evidence, here's what we've found.
And leave it to them because your job's done. Our job's done.
We would liaise with the police, would certainly be a key witness in that. At other councils, we've got court cases coming up where they'd want me to be as a witness because it's our work.
But having handed it to the police and got them sort of involved, is then to close the loop? Do we follow that up in any way? Do we have an outcome from it?
We would always be looking at control weaknesses as part of the investigation. Have we got to change the way we're doing something? What's gone wrong? And that might lead to recommendations. Yeah. Does that answer your question? Yeah, good. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions? No? Okay. Well, thank you very much. And we'll note that we've received that report. So item number 5 now is the Treasury Management Annual Report for 2024-25. And Sarah's going to go through that for us whenever she's ready.
Thank you, Chair. So this is the Treasury Management Annual Report for 24-25. As you're aware, we bring 2 Treasury Management reports each year as recommended by the CIPFA Code of Practice. This report will actually go on to full council at the end of September after it's been noted here at this committee meeting. So the report therefore ensures that the council is embracing best practice through its treasury management activities, that the treasury management operations are carried out in accordance with policies down in the currently approved treasury management policy statements. The council has been provided with treasury management advisory services from Arling Close again for the year, the 1st of April 2024 to the 31st of March 2025. A summary of what was in the actual treasury management annual report. So we are still no borrowings within the year, 1st of April 24 to 31st of March 2025. I know we've said it the last couple of years that we will be borrowing this year. We haven't kind of got there yet. We are anticipating that we will be borrowing externally around about September, October time of this year. So later in the year, perhaps we'll bring back an update as and when we do actually externally borrow, then we'll bring something back to the committee and inform the committee at that time. The council has received interest of £810,000 during that year. This was an average rate of return of 4.77%, which was predominantly interest earned from money that we were holding from town deal funds and future high street funds. The council has also met its prudential indicators, which is shown in Appendix 1. So the prudential indicators set a measure to assess the financial health and sustainability of the council's capital spending. They ensure that the borrowing and other financial activities are affordable, prudent, and support the council's long-term objectives. The indicators help the council risks associated with capital investment and borrowing, ensuring that the council stays within the sustainable limits. Happy to take any questions at all on the annual treasury management report. And like I said, it will be taken to full council at the end of September. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. Any questions, Mike?
Just very quickly. One, I think there's only a few of us left now, but it's nice to see that there's no Icelandic banks involved in this. Yeah, there's only a few of us that remember that, but boy, do we remember that. The other thing I'll say, and it's the same complaint every year, and actually, I really would like somebody to do something about it. Arlington Close Limited can write a nice 2 sides of A4 that they can send to every client of theirs just to put into a report. It would be nice if it was readable because there's a few of us that are trained, and even we struggle reading this because it's ridiculous. It's not plain English, and if they put it through a plain English filter, it'd be kicked out as ridiculous. I think it's unfair, really, to ask some members to read this and to be able to understand it and be able to then give feedback on it. If they could write it in plain English, we would really appreciate it. Thank you.
We did go back to them after last year and ask them to simplify it. From their point of view, there are certain facts that they have to put in. We've tried to simplify that a little bit, but I take your point on board and we will try and do it a bit more for next time.
I just wondered whether it's possible for you or Craig to give us like an overview of it, which is how we originally started doing the preface to the accounts. Just in the things that specifically relate to us that we can actually tie back to the figures, because obviously if we have no borrowing, it doesn't really matter too much what's happening in relation to borrowing. If on the other hand, if the things relate to interest that we've accrued, then maybe that's where we need a little bit more explanation. I mean, you could probably just do it with a couple of paragraphs. So it might be worth doing that. That an idea? Yeah.
Yeah. So as we spoke later this year, we are looking at borrowing. So when we do start that, then certainly I'll try and do a bit of a, this is where we are in the national context and by rolling close.
We get a half-year report on this, don't we? So maybe if we try it with the half-year report, and just put a couple of paragraphs there, just in plain English.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Are we happy to receive this report then? Yeah. Okay. Item number 6 then is the Q4 Corporate Risk Management Report for 2024-25, and Anthony's going to give us a run through on this whenever you're ready.
I'll use this, but I'll do it.
Apologies if I don't switch my mic on, then no one can hear us. So yeah, Q4 chair, elected members, corporate risk management report 24-25. There are a couple of things I just draw to your attention. Obviously, the report is there. I won't read it all out, but the one that I would just like to highlight is Appendix A, which is actually has been overtaken by events in the sense that the audit and standards report is for risks as at 31st March 25 for Q4 24-25, and any risks that were overdue 6 months or more, which appears at this point, which is the point at which that was recorded. However, that has now been updated. So, and that was reported to informal cabinet. So informal cabinet were aware that it had been updated. Unfortunately, didn't have time to change this report. So it's a good news thing that if it has been updated and it will in fact be reported, that change will be reflected in the September report. Effectively, that related to member development arrangements. I am in discussions currently with the Centre for Governance and Scrutiny to provide bespoke member training, which is something I think that would be welcome to all members. I was hoping that obviously that would have been done before now. Partly the election as well was one of the reasons why we had to put it back, to be honest with you, due to workloads. So we're looking at September to start rolling that training out. In terms of the other items, bear with me. So that's the overdue risk that is not in fact overdue. Appendix B is relating to business partnership risks. which is related is identified as being a high impact but a medium likelihood, and that is in relation to treating that risk and mitigations in relation to just the sheer number, I would suggest, of innovative commercial developments that this council is undertaking at the current time. Clearly, when you enter into more cutting edge, I might say, and very groundbreaking, and particularly regeneration projects that this borough is doing, your risk will rise because you are getting involved in quite complex commercial transactions. That said, as far as I can report, that is being very well mitigated and very well managed at the current time, and will continue to be so. Appendix C is in relation to the Kidsgrove Town deal and the shared service hub and the project delivery of that. The revised proposals for delivery of the shared service hub, I understand, were not accepted by the board, or elements prove not capable of being delivered. Sorry, that's the risk. That's not saying that they've not accepted it. So if that were to happen, that would be the risk. And obviously that would cause reputational damage and loss of improvements to the residents of Kidsgrove, and that's why we identify it. That is being successfully managed at the current time. The delivery of the project elements, the action plan describes that there is a plan there to deliver individual project elements, and they're being taken forward separately to minimise any risk of project failure. And in D is the report. So they're the three appendices, and the report is there if you wish to ask any questions. Thank you.
Anthony, Mike.
Comment and one question. So the comment is, I'm really pleased to see the Kidsgrove Town deal become on the risk register. I think it's probably 6 months too late, but at least it's there now. So let's celebrate that it's there. The one, so I think it's Appendix D. Is that the elevation? So yeah. So I think the Bribery Act, has that increased in its risk? Is that the one which? Sorry.
I apologise. I think I misspoke. Appendix D relates to air quality.
Okay.
I omitted to mention it.
Absolutely fine. So what's the trigger for the increase in risk in the one that has increased? I think what's changed for it to be to a higher risk?
Not really clear.
Right, okay. Sorry, can you just bear with me a second? As I say, I'm not actually aware of any specific incident that has caused this risk to be increased. In relation to the Bribery Act, it's a piece of legislation that's been here since 2010, so it's something that's not new. I really would have to get more information to find out exactly why it's been increased. But obviously, we've heard from the counter fraud sort of expert tonight that in terms of the mitigations of risk generally regarding any fraud across the piece, in terms of council business, there is no alarm bells ringing there. In terms of where this lies, I would need to go back and check the trajectory on that. Yeah, if that's all right. Yeah, because I hope you appreciate, I don't do all the number crunching on the individual ones, but what I would say is it will always be a high impact. So it will always be quite a raised profile in the event there were to be an incident of bribery. However, it being a medium likelihood, I must admit that's something I will go back and check, because that perhaps doesn't sit terribly well with the mitigations that we've heard tonight. So I will go back and check that.
One line that basically says the risks that there's an added risk within the risk that sits in the Bribery Act. So if somebody could just highlight that one new risk and what it is, that'd be great. Thank you.
Happy to do that, Councillor.
Thank you. Have we got any other questions on this report then? No? Okay, thanks, Anthony. Thanks, everybody. In that case, then, what we need to consider is whether there's anything that we want to scrutinise in more detail at the next meeting in relation to this. Any individual risk profiles that the committee would like to scrutinise in more detail at its next meeting? No? No? Nothing particular? Okay, thank you. Can we also note that whilst the likelihood of a risk materialising may be mitigated, the likely impacts may not change? Okay. Yeah. Right, in that case, then, are we happy to note the things as written on the first page of the report? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Okay, item number 7 then is the work programme. Has anybody got any comments on the work programme that they wish to make? It's full, yeah, yeah. Okay.
It doesn't change.
No. No? Okay, that's great. Thank you. Okay, I've not been told of any urgent business, so thank you everybody for attending, and we'll close the meeting. Thank you.